who have a desperate urge to listen to my jokes again. So anyway, the plan for today is we're basically going to do a couple of things. We'll go through the exam system, in particular the fact that it's changing in a year's time, and we'll spend a bit of time trying to make that a little clearer. We'll talk a little bit about top tips for studying as well, because there's quite a difference between university studying and studying for these exams, and then answer any questions that you have. So I'll stick around at the end of it until all your questions are satisfied. I'm here, I've got my colleague Ian, who's somewhere over there. There he is. He'll be answering kind of questions in the chat box down there while I'm kind of delivering the comedy or something, something like that anyway. Right, let us kick off. So I'm supposed to tell you something about ACTED. ACTED is short for the Actuarial Education Company. We are the official provider by the IFoA, and we're bought out by BPP, who trains accountants, lawyers, health professionals, that kind of thing. And apparently we've got 30 tutors. I thought it was 29, but apparently we've got another one. It's starting very shortly, which is very exciting. And if you're mildly interested, we're based in Abingdon, which is south of Oxford. And yeah, that's about it. It hasn't got anything else going for it, really. Pretty but functionally useless would be a good description. All right, so let's find out what you know and not waste your time. So what do we do? So there's a list of things. What are the things that we do as opposed to the profession do? Let's find out. Votes are coming in. You can vote for as many of them as you like. Oh, you're doing fairly good. Okay, give you a few moments more, and then we'll just nip through that. Okay, so here's where we are at the moment. So I'll end that in case some of you want a last minute change. You are all correct. We do not set the exams. That's profession. We don't see the exams till after the exam period. We don't set the syllabus for the exams, but we do write course materials, revision notes, mocks, face-to-face, internet. Exam counselling, if you're not aware what that is, for the later subjects, not for the CT subjects, but for the later subjects, you can pay to have someone from the profession go through your exam and give you a little write-up report, and if you'd like, a follow-on call as well. We don't provide that, unfortunately, and we don't provide exemptions from exams. You have to contact the profession directly. So if you think you're, because of your university studies, you're going to get some exemptions, you have to fill out a form online from them. So you're fairly close to what we do. Let me just close that down. So there you are. Right, let's move on. So a quick summary. Yeah, sorry, it did look really beautiful in my PowerPoint. I'll email you that so you can see it proper. We do produce study materials. We do provide tuition, both face-to-face and online. We do provide study support, marking of assignments and mocks, and various revision aids. So we are what we say we are. We do all the education side of things. Okay, right. Well, that's kind of what we do. Let's start talking about the exams. So down the bottom end, the starter for 10 is that there are 9 CT subjects. CT stands for core technical. Okay. CT1 is financial mathematics, so kind of pricing up loans or bonds or shares. CT2 is finance and financial reporting, which is kind of like where you'll discover that you made the right choice becoming an actuary and not an accountant. CT3, probability, statistics, that kind of thing. CT4 isn't as exciting as it sounds. It's about survival models rather than walking up a catwalk. CT5 is about life insurance, that kind of thing. CT6 is more stats, but kind of a general insurance bias. CT8 is your bog standard economics. Sorry, CT7 that is. And CT8 is economics, where you're trying to work out kind of like pricing of or how the stock market works, things like that. And CT9, business awareness, is a little 2-day course, or at least it used to be, then it swapped to online. However, here's a bunch of statements, 8 statements there. The question is, let's find out what you know. Which of those are correct and which of them are wrong? So let me just, oh, it's hidden it. There we are. So again, click all the ones. Which ones of those do you think are definitely incorrect? and I'll just see what you know, so I'm not boring you, although I can do that on request if you like. Okay, not too bad. Oh, sorry, I was going, my goodness, loads of you think that one's correct. That's clearly not correct, and then realised the question was how many of these are incorrect, so you're doing really well. All right, let me show you what you've got so far, and just end that poll. Oh, quick, people changing their minds. So each subject is a single 3-hour written paper. That is true for all of the CTs. I should have said CT1 to CT8. If you're saying it's incorrect, I presume that's because you're going, CT9 isn't that. They do bizarrely all have an additional 15 minutes reading time. So whilst that was great for the later subjects, the CT subjects, some people have been like, well, it's maths, what do I do in that time? If you want, we do have a YouTube channel called Actuarial Education, fairly easy to find. We've got a little video on that which tells you what you can do in that 15 minutes, which is quite good advice. So you're not allowed to use your calculator or write in the answer booklet, but you can do pretty much anything else in that time, and we give you some tips of how to best use it. There are no choice in the questions that you do, so most of you are correct on that. You have to do everything. There are some multi-choice questions in the CT2 and the CT7 exams. That's because there's a lot of book work in those exams rather than maths, and so they tend to test that via the multi-choice questions. Yep, questions do vary from short to long, so up to about 20 marks at the end and starting at like 2-3 marks at the beginning. You are correct on this, majority of you. You are allowed a beloved formula book. I can't believe I've not brought my formula book in. Unfortunately, it got rather wet in the downpour today, so it's drying out. So I forgot to bring it with me. Yep, great emphasis on speed, accuracy, intentional detail. You'll hear horror stories of people running out of time. And the pass mark definitely is not 80%. So for the CT subjects, the pass mark got started publishing last year, and it's been about 60% each time for every CT subject. CT4 hasn't quite reached the heady heights of 60% yet, but it's getting close. Okay, however, there is trouble brewing. So you're right on those. The trouble is, CT9, I said, is a business awareness course, and you're supposed to take it between 15 and 18 months of joining. However, everything is changing in 12 months' time. We have 2 sittings left, so April 2018 and September 2018 under the current system, and then we're swapping to a new system. So the new system, I'll just do that again in case you missed it, is going from 9 subjects down to 7-ish. Okay, and they're not quite the same size either. So let me chat about what's going on with those. So the way it's working is that CT3 is staying pretty much unscathed. CT4 and CT6 are pretty much joining together to become a new subject. CT1 and CT5 are joining together to become a new subject. CT8 is staying pretty much the same. CT2 and CT7 are staying pretty much the same. So yeah, there's a couple of changes coming, and one of the most frustrating things will be that CT7, CT2, CT8 are pretty much all the same as before, but they're now essentially a single exam under the new system, so there's now more weighting on those, I suppose, proportionally, whereas the ones where you're combining are going to be much bigger subjects and are going to be a little bit more hard to take. So let's just chat. So the CT9, don't worry about that. That's not going to apply to you at all. You're going to be taking what's called CB3, which stands for Core Business 3, after about a year, and we haven't really got any details. It's still a bit up in the air. So just ignore that one for now. Right, let's just chat through. Oh, I forgot to ask another question. So a moment ago, you told me some problems with that one. These exams are called Core Principles exams, CP for short. Which ones of these are going to be incorrect about these exams? Because there is a little bit of a change now. Okay, let's show you what you're coming up with. So, yeah, definitely the pass mark is still probably, well, we haven't got an official, but given that they're trying to keep everything the same, would still expect it to be about 60%. Okay, can you do CT9 if you want? Not really, because they recommend you take it between 15 and 18 months. I mean, I suppose you... Oh, is there an official? Okay, Ian's saying there isn't an official kind of you can't that we're aware of, so I suppose you could, if you're desperate to avoid, if you've heard any bad rumours about CB3, but as I said, it's not finally decided CB3 at the moment. Right, the other major difference a lot of you have picked up on, great, really chuffed someone's told you this. A lot of the papers are now, yeah, the slides will be available to download. A lot of the papers are shifting over to paper and computer. So that's the other big change. So let me just scroll back a little bit. So the problem we've got is what we do in the office and what we can test on a bit of paper are getting further and further apart. And it was reaching a point where either we had to just accept that the exams are just a hoop you've jumped through for no reason whatsoever, or whether you go, come on, let's try and make this more realistically. So that's what we attempted to do. The profession did. I was on one of the steering teams that did that. And so we're introducing a statistical package. So we're recommending R for that because it's free, and Excel as well. So you'll have some written exam and then you'll have some R or Excel. A lot of people are panicking about R. You know, really, it's not into heavy duty programming. It's just a case of can you apply a function and do a little bit more than what you could have done on a piece of paper. So things like in my teaching area, generalized linear models, you really couldn't do anything on a piece of paper. But, you know, they're essential for what we're doing in the office, certainly in general insurance. And that's why we need to introduce it. So that's the major change. So the ones which are CSs, which stand for core statistics, they're going to be using a statistical package, so we recommend R, and the CMs, which stands for core modeling, they're going to use Excel. Okay, so we try to bunch them according to the package. Right, any shouting and screaming on these changes before I move on to the next bit? Because that's the biggest thing that's going to impact you. Yep, go for it, MG. Or the anticipation. Yes, certainly that's going to be my job, in fact. So we've already got a couple of introductory videos on our YouTube channel, which you're welcome to go there. And then we'll be doing specific materials. It's not quite decided whether that's going to be totally kind of video based or whether that will have written materials as well, other than, you know, questions to practice. So we haven't quite nailed that bit down, but certainly it will have video tuition as part of it. But yes, we will go through every function that you need and ensure that you have some kind of assignment so you can practice it. Okay. Yeah, because the advantage of R is there's a lot of free stuff out there, but having tried to teach myself R, it's trying to find the free stuff. How long will we be sitting computer-based exams? Can you remember what it is? Have they specified it yet?
How will they? No, they haven't decided yet. No.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you there's some discussion which has gone out, but it's kind of thinking that they're going to do what they currently do for the later exams, which is you take it at home. So in which case it can be kind of open book, but you do have a time limit. So obviously, you know, it would be wise to learn how to do stuff before you go into the exam. Okay, but as I said, that's not quite finalised yet, but that's been the discussion that I'm aware of. So it's similar to how we currently test CA2. Okay. All right, let's just talk about how the exams go. So the way it works is CT3, which is statistics 1, is needed heavily for CT6 and CT4 and a tiny bit in CT5 and CT8. CT1 is needed heavily in CT5 and CT8. And so what we used to say is in the first session, you know, take CT1 and CT3 and then you can do any of the other exams. However, things are changing now because you need to start thinking ahead to how the changeover goes. The problem that we've got is that the ones in the circles are being joined together into one exam, and you will only get an exemption out of the new CM1 or the CS2 if you pass both of the relevant CTs. Okay, so we need to start thinking a little bit carefully about what we do. So we always recommend normally, you know, CT3 and CT1 to start off with, because everything else depends on it. But then you're going to have to make sure you pass CT5 within the next 2 sessions. Otherwise, you're not going to get your CM1 exemption. Okay, so it's kind of a little tricky of what you might want to do, but certainly probably go for CT1, CT3, CT5. Make sure you get all those exemptions, and then possibly sit it out and do the CT7, CT2 or something like that, or try and get both of these if you've got a few exemptions. Okay, so that makes things a little bit trickier for what to choose. So at the very least, I'll just reiterate that if you've got no exemptions, I would recommend get CT3 out the way, because everything else depends on that pretty much. Okay, and then try and get CT1 and CT5 done. Okay, and then just take the other one sitting around the edge. If you've got some exemptions, like you've got an exemption for CT3, you might want to go for CT4 and CT6 before the changeover. Do I recommend it? Personally, I think 3 exams in 1 sitting is quite hard, but I know a lot of companies will push you to do that over the winter sitting. It's doable, but you have to be organised. So, I mean, I'll give you some tips on that when we talk about studying. So it is totally doable, and I know a lot of people who've done it, but the key is having a revision plan, you know, set out, a study plan set out, rather than kind of going, oh yeah, it'll be fine, because what tends to happen is people reach about January and then suddenly have a panic and realise they can't fit it all in. But yeah, so if you think doing 3 is a bit too much, you might flip, you know, do 1 and 3, and then, you know, just aim for 5 in the next sitting and definitely pass it, or do 1, 3 and 5 and then maybe try and retake it if you haven't passed it in the next sitting. That's kind of the options you're looking at. Okay, I'll spend a little time here because there's going to be a couple of questions on this. So if you've got any questions, just type them all in the chat box and we'll answer them as soon as we get. Otherwise, I'll shift on and I'll let Ian pick them up. Obviously, if you've got exemptions from most things, is the content between CT4, CT6? No, it's not quite the same. So if you want to kind of break down, some of CT6 has actually gone into CS1. So actually you might end up, there's a possibility some people will miss out GLIMs, so generalized linear models, which is a bit shocking. And there's also some new material that's come in. So because we're now using computers, we can do things that we just couldn't test on a bit of paper. So things like copulas can now be tested, and extreme value theory that just really could only be looked at as bookwork before. So there is a lot of new content coming in. Okay, right, I'll proceed on. If there's any other questions, then as I said, type in the chat box. I'll stick around at the end, and I'll also write in the chat box, that's my email address. If a question comes up, keeps you awake at night, you know, just drop me a question via email and I'll be totally fine sorting that out. Okay, so there are a couple of issues that we find. The first issue is that some people come into the exams and didn't do a numeric degree, so maybe they did, I don't know, economics or something like that, at which point the economists here will say, we did do numbers in us, but find their maths is a little bit rusty. So if that's the case, we have 2 products to help you out. If your maths is rusty, FAC, which stands for Foundation Actuarial course, covers all the maths that you need. So your calculus, geometric series, matrices, that kind of stuff that you need later on. If your statistics is weak, and you hit CT3 and you just go, this is going too fast, I don't know what's going on, then Stats Pack is for you. I mean, the bottom line is start the courses, see how you get on. If you find you're running into trouble, then great, go for it. You know, because I don't want you to buy stuff that you don't need. So start the courses, see how it's going, and if you're getting in trouble, then go for those. Unless, of course, you've got loads of money and you want to spend it all, in which case, yeah, we'll happily take it. Okay. The other problem that we've got is some people come in with an exemption in CT3. And that's normally because they cover statistics in the first year of their uni, which, of course, is like 2 years ago. And they've forgotten it. And so when they hit CT4 and CT6, which desperately need lots of stats from CT3, they're not quite good at it. So Stats Refresher is different. What it's designed for is those who they've met it before, they've just forgotten it, and they just want a quick refresh. So it's me doing it. It's a little online course that you can watch some videos, and as I said, a couple of evenings you'll be completely up to speed. Okay, so those are just a couple of issues that we found and why we develop products to try and meet those needs. Okay, so let's talk about the next stage. The next stage up currently is CA1, CA2 and CA3, although CA3 has now changed to the new CP3, if I remember correctly. Ian's nodding. So for those who've got exemptions to most of the CTs, you'll be starting here. You'll be able to take the CA1 before the change comes. Okay, let me just chat through. Oh, sorry. So CA1 is a beast of subjects. It's currently tested by 2 3-hour exams plus 15 minutes reading time, and the course is about 50 chapters, so it's an absolute beast, and if you hear any nightmares, they're all true. CA2 is about York students typing in. I'll just carry on and we'll answer you as time goes on. CA2 is about kind of audit trails. So supposing you're on the way to work, you get run over by a bus and someone has to pick up your stuff. The question is, can you actually set up an audit trail? So you do. Yes, CA2 and CA3 is currently moved to twice a year. Yeah, it used to be a number of times, but unfortunately they've restricted it, which does limit how many options you've got to take it before the changeover. So CA2 is about picking up someone else's spreadsheet or writing your own spreadsheet with audit trail. It's not so much about programming and stuff, it's about writing an audit trail. And CA3 communications, which is the one that actuaries are notoriously bad at, and it's about trying to communicate our understanding to lay readers, a standard audience. So yeah, that's not done very well. But the good news is that the video element has been removed, or bad news, because actuaries just didn't do very well on that. So you've probably heard the joke, how do you spot the introvert actuary at a party? No, you've not had the cover. There's only about 3 actuary jokes out there. Okay, he's the one staring at someone else. Hold on, no, I've done the joke the wrong way around. No wonder you don't know it. How do you spot the extrovert actuary at a party? That's what I meant to say. No, no one knows that either. All right, he's the one staring at someone else's shoes. Okay, so let's talk about how it's changing. So it's pretty much the same as before, but a couple of differences. It doesn't say everything there. So CP1 used to be 2 exam papers, both of them just testing questions on any part of the syllabus. CP1 is now moving to 1 kind of question paper, and you're welcome. Money's in the post. But they're now going to do a case study for the 2nd paper. So that's the change coming to that one. CP2 is pretty much the same as far as I'm aware, and CP3, as I said, is now moving to complete written exam and no video presentation. But other than that, pretty much the same as far as I'm aware. Okay, so most of the changes are happening lower down. Right, let me just show you the last few exams. Kind of changes. So CA2, which is currently, they recommend you pass all those, including CP3, which is a bit bizarre because CP3 comes afterwards. But anyway, and they recommend you pass all the core subjects for that. So a little bit of detail there. Okay, let's move on to the final few things. I nearly forgot I was going to do the next level up. Things have changed slightly. You're expected in the first year to take an online professional awareness test. That's just making sure that you're aware of the actuary's code of conduct, because as students you are bound by the code of conduct. So that's a little test, be no problem that. But now what you're doing, we used to have a kind of work-based skills at the very end where after students pass, they then quickly try to remember and gather written evidence to show that they've done something in the office. But yeah, that caused a bit of grief. So the profession has wisely moved over to every year you're expected to submit stuff. It's not too onerous. It's just basically showing that you have done something relevant to actuarial work. And you're supposed to do at least 3 years before you can be fully signed off. And then once you are signed off, you don't escape it. You do continuing professional development and have to take a professionalism course as well, just to make sure that you know about professionalism. And every year you're expected to do a couple of hours of professionalism. Okay, so it's a big thing about the profession that we want to take. Alrighty, just the last little bit. So currently, but I don't think it will apply to anyone. We have what's called specialist technical subjects, and this is whereby you get a little bit of choice. So ST1 is kind of health and care, life insurance, pensions, finance. Finance A is kind of corporate and banking finance, and finance B is kind of dealing more with kind of the call options and that kind of thing. And then you've got 2 GI exams, and the enterprise risk management is the one where you can get the extra letters after your name, CIRA, Certificate of Enterprise, Certified Enterprise Risk Actuary. Thank you, I forgot what it stands for. So you can get extra letters if you take that. In case you're wondering where ST3 went, that was general insurance, but it got split out into pricing and reserving, ST7 and ST8. Okay, so the change is pretty much the same. It's now called SP instead of ST, and the names all match up as before. Right, the final one is the, I'll now click it, the SA exam, Specialist Application. And so that's normally where your company will specify what you have to specialise in, but there are in health, life, pensions, general insurance. There is only one change, well, there's a couple of changes. The first is they're moving from UK specific to more general. Okay. The second change is there's one less of them. So SA5 and SA6 are combining together, and they're going to call it SA7. So those are the only changes there, but as you know, that's kind of far off for now. But I just wanted to give you a heads up of what's coming. Okay. You can also, instead of sitting exams, do a dissertation. So ST0 or SA0, so you could enter a dissertation instead. Okay. Right. Well, that's a very quick journey through the exam system. Any more shouting and screaming about the exams? Okay, otherwise we'll move on to kind of study skills and stuff. No? Go for it, Dipti. Do we know the marks assigned to the computer-based exam? It's something I should know, but I think it's about half and half. But don't quote me on that, but it's about half and half. Okay. So certainly the Excel will be no bothers at all, because all of you will be using that in the office. But as I said, the R will make sure you've got all materials up, and it's not heavy on programming. It's more using it and interpreting the results. Okay. So I know a lot of people are a bit nervous about that, but it is going to be okay. I know, because I'm teaching myself on it, and now I'm a genius on it, and I'm not that clever a man. So I've picked it up, and I'm going to try and explain it much more simply than all the stuff I've been ploughing through online. Okay, well, we need to ask the question, how many years does it take to qualify on average? Place your bets. How are we doing on time? Oh, not too bad. We've got a couple of people with a sense of humour. Okay, so let me show you what you're going for. So there seems to be a kind of 4, 5 years and a couple of stragglers on. I'm rather embarrassed to say I took 7 years, but I did have rather a large family by that point. I didn't start with a large family. I don't know whether my family increased because I was finding anything else to do other than study for exam. But anyway, but most people it's about 4 to 5 years. There are some that give up, so I suppose there is no end ever for those. In fact, loads of people I follow on Twitter seem to have left the actuarial profession, some to become teachers, some to just do other things. Yeah, one teaching people bagpipes. That was an interesting move. But anyway, so you're about right. It is about 4 to 5 years on average, though it may take slightly longer under the new system. I mean, it isn't their design, but given that you can only take like the CA2 and CA3 equivalent exams twice a year, that might slow people down a little bit, possibly. And given that some of the exams are much bigger, you might see more failures. We don't know yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do now in this, how did you find time studying and start a family? I'm going to be talking about that, MG, I genuinely, because there are some clever tricks I can teach you. So we'll go through that. Right, well, how long do you need to spend studying? How long is a piece of string? Because that question is quite open-ended. If you're mildly interested, a piece of string is twice half its length. Let's look at what the profession recommends. So for a CT subject, how many hours does the profession recommend you study for before you're full for each one? Oh, one person's a little optimistic, but the rest of you are doing better. Okay. One person's very optimistic. Okay, so this is what you're going for at the moment. So the 50 hours you wish. So the profession recommends 125 hours to 150 hours per CT subject. For CA1, they recommend 300 hours. So it's equivalent to about 2.5 CT subjects. Okay, well, that's just a number. That's per subject you take. So obviously, if you're taking 2 subjects, you'll need to take 250 to whatever. I can't do it in my head. My brain's gone. Anyway, lots. Let's break that down. So the issue we've got is, oh, sorry, not that one. Wrong poll. I'll get the right poll this time. There it is. The question we've got to start asking is, how does that break down to per week? Okay, because you have to get up a study plan. I mean, that's the bottom line. You could quickly work it out if you want. So I don't know, what is it? Something like 30 weeks to the exams. There we are. So you're getting about right. So if we've got 30 weeks, what is it? About 5-6 hours a week. However, what tends to happen is a lot of students are just starting out, so they're getting used to the office, getting used to trying to adjust to a work day, you know, and get home and they're just so knackered and they go, oh yeah, I'll do it a little bit later, you know, once I get used to the job. And a little bit later means kind of a month or 2 later, by which point it's gone up from 5 to 6 hours a week to about 7 to 8 hours a week if you kick off, say, in November. So the key for fitting it in is start early. Okay, then you're about 5 to 6 hours a week per subject. So my kind of advice is, like, if you're doing 2 subjects, you've got like 12 hours. Now you may be able to take a study day a week, okay, but realistically you're not going to get more than 8 hours study in. I always thought I would, but just your brain just fries after a while. In fact, it took me years to realise that I was really productive to about 1 o'clock and they just couldn't do anything in the afternoon. And I used to spend years trying to still soldier through that afternoon until I realised, you know what, it's just not happening. So I just took a complete break, went for a walk, came back. I was so much more productive and less stress. So realistically, you only probably get 8 hours on a study day, which means you need to fit in, if you're doing 2 subjects, another, 4+ hours a week. Okay, so where do you fit that? Well, you're going to have to fit that in your evenings or on the weekend. So it's kind of like you're going to have to come up with a plan, and I do recommend coming up with a plan. A kind of rule of thumb I used is, if you treat it like a chapter per subject per week, that's about right. So if you're studying a chapter, doing all the questions in it, it's about right. If you're starting the CA1 exam, you want to do about 3 chapters a week. That's a kind of good rule of thumb. The major issue is, if you're doing a study plan, it might be worth chatting to people in your office and saying, when's the busy period? Don't pretend there isn't a busy period. There's always a busy period. What tends to happen is a lot of people have kind of year end in April, and so from January onwards it gets really mad, in which case you would be wise to get as much study done as possible before Christmas. Okay, so that's kind of worthwhile just asking around. I can't remember what my next slide is. Oh yeah, the difference between it. But that would be my hint. So get a study plan in. Other top tips. How did I fit in studying? Well, when I was working in London, I kind of had an hour commute there and an hour commute back. So that's kind of like an hour of 2 hours of study every day. So what I would do is I would study on the train there, do my day of work, study on the train back, and then I'd come home. I was knackered at that point, so I'd just, have my meal, a little bit of unwind, and then do a couple of exam questions later. Particularly if you are travelling on a tube train or on a bus. I got so much done on that. I made myself little flashcards and tested myself using flashcards. Got so much work done on the tube. It was really good. For later subjects, we do actually have an app It's called the ActEd Student app or something. You'll find it in both the iTunes store and also in Google Play. And we have acronym generators for that, so you could use that if you just want to learn a little bit of bookwork. So haven't got it for every subject, but for those subjects where you have to learn a lot of bookwork, we've got some things in there. So that may help. Those are a couple of tips. I'll give you some more later, but we'll just gently shove on. Okay, the major issue we've got is the difference between university and actuarial, and I might have overlapped with this already. So, free-for-all answers. How do you think studying for actuarial exams will be different to studying for your uni exams? And I've actually already overlapped a little bit. Sorry about that. Never mind, it's easier. Yep, you are definitely working at the same time, and you will be more tired. Oh yes, in fact, some companies don't let students take study days within, the last 2 weeks of the exam, or can't take a block of them. Less Netflix time. Yes, that's a certain. I can't remember the last time I watched telly. Never mind. No lectures. Yes. So you do go to tutorials, or you can watch online tutorials, but tutorials are like 3 days or something. So more of it is you doing it on your own. So you do need to be a bit more disciplined. Anything else you want to add there? Yeah. So it's much more self-study, and so that's why you need a thing. Less hungover. Well, that's good to know, I think. But yeah, you just social life is kind of going on the back burner for a little while for now. All those things you said in your interview, I'm sure. But yeah, so the major thing is just you have to do it a bit more on your own. You have to be grown-up adults now. I know it's hard, but I think you can manage it. And so you have to study yourself and come up with a plan. Have I said a plan enough times? I hope so. So also mentioned already, it does take a little while to adjust to doing a full-time job and then studying in the evening. I have to say it took me a little while. But, some people come in early and do an hour there. Some people leave late but go and hide themselves in a meeting room so no one asks them to do work. Whichever works for you, find a way of fitting it in. Using dead time, as I mentioned, is a key one for squeezing it in. You can probably do a fair bit of study one day of the weekend, but I would say, you need to have some kind of life. So I would always go for the kind of, the Jewish Sabbath principle, always take like a day off. Just, you need to have a break. Go do a hobby or something, whether it be football or badminton or what, just go do something, because otherwise what will happen is you'll end up, particularly if office is getting a bit heavy and you're staying extra hours there, then you're studying, your life will disappear, you will just head into the ground. You don't want to do that, so you need to make sure you also structure some downtime. And I don't think telly or surfing social media really is relaxing enough. I genuinely recommend getting out, get into a bit of nature or something, or sport or something like that. So please do that, and do, as I said, chat to your work colleagues, find out when the crush is so you can plan it. And other things you can do with planning is, if you're going to submit assignments, which I'll talk about a little bit about later, you might want to find out when the deadlines are and kind of plan around that. So those are a couple of tips. Other thing is that to get a job, probably you are in the top bunch. So a first or 2-1 from uni, or you're coming in on an apprenticeship scheme from A levels. Again, you'll be the top students. And so there's going to be a little bit more competition. So they are the hardest professional exams, I believe, out there. So I don't know, but if you cope with uni, you should be all right. The other little different bit is a lot of universities are quite theory-based. I mean, certainly I was at Oxford and I just don't remember seeing a number the entire time I was there. Whereas these exams tend to be more calculation-based because we're trying to apply it. Now, it might have been different. You might have had a uni which did much more kind of numeric calculations and stuff. I can assure you, the only good thing that came out of Oxford is I discovered I was incredibly thick. I went in quite arrogant, but other than that, I came out at the end going, I know nothing. So just really, oh dear, now you're asking the questions. I was at University College for my sins. But anyway, so there's a couple of differences there. Let's move on. So other little bits that we need to mention is that the timing is slightly different. So traditionally, you used to get your exam, take your exam, wait for your results, make decisions. What will now happen is you often have to make decisions about what you're studying before you get the results. For example, if you're taking an exam in April, you won't get the results until kind of July. But if you wait until July before you start studying for your next exam, you're going to be really packed for time. So you often have to start before. Well, you need to start beforehand, let's be honest. So if you really take an exam and you just go, that's a disaster, I'm so going to fail that, then you might want to go, okay, I'm probably going to retake that, so I'll just start studying one subject now. But if you go through it and go, yep, those were both good, start studying 2 subjects. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Right, just going to chat through a little bit about learning and stuff. So the kind of bog standard package we offer is what's called a CMP, which stands for Combined Materials Pack. It's got your core reading in, notes, it's got questions in it, question and answer banks at the end for extra questions, and assignments for even more questions, which you can send off for marking if you want, which is what that does. We offer all kinds of tuition trying to fit around students' lifestyles, so regular. So personally, I went for regular because it forced me to study by the tutorial. Or if your office environment is quite kind of chaotic and you can't guarantee that you're always going to get time off in the same place, then what you might want to do is take a block of tuition nearer the exam. Okay, you know, all in like 2 or 3 days. Alternatively, there are live online if getting to a tutorial in a venue at London or something is a little bit harder. Or we have pre-recorded online tuition if it's a case of you're just not going to be able to take off a whole day. So we've got a variety of ways of trying to meet your needs. Okay, and as I said, there are assignments. If you want, you can pay to have them marked. And yeah, just as a little bit of extra feedback, particularly for those coming in with all the CTs, I would genuinely recommend you get some marking on things like the communications exam, because the pass rate on that is awful. So as much feedback as you can get is a good plan. Okay, so that's kind of the learning. The key thing about making the most of study materials is making it active. I cannot stress that enough. I'll be talking about why in a moment, but let's have your ideas. So how can you make learning more active? Okay, because that's going to be the key for passing. Just reading notes, you're going to fall asleep. Do you know, I had someone do this last year. Someone said star jumps last year. Yes, that does make it more active, and yes, doing it on a treadmill will, it's not quite what I was really trying to do. Okay, yeah, 2 of you are doing it, answering questions, excellent. Explaining it to other people is a great way of testing that you understand it yourself. Lots of questions, yep. Flashcarding, which is what I did, is again a way of testing yourself. It's a way of checking you've actually got it in your head. And applying it in practice. That is just the key. So in the notes there are questions there. Try them, okay, because it will just show you if you understand it or not. So I get a lot of students that come to the tutorials and we expect you to have read the notes beforehand, and I say, okay, where were the problems? And they go, oh no, it seemed fine. And I always follow up with, did you try any questions? And they go, oh no. And I go, well, that's why it seems fine, because it's not until you try the questions that you go, oh no, I've no idea what's going on. Teach it back to my dog. Yes. Do you translate that into dog language before you do that, or are you expecting the dog to understand English? So in which case that's kind of 2 skills, because it's explaining it to an animal and also in dog language. So, you know, it's kind of double skills there. No response. Okay, but the more active you make, so I did a lot of studying on learning. So I started doing a master's in education, and the making it active is a key way of ensuring it stays in your head a little bit better. Whereas if you just read it, it's just going to drop out. You're going to fall asleep. You know, we try and make the notes interesting, but really they're not that interesting. Okay, so that's a key thing to mention. Making the most of tutorials. Right, I don't know. Ooh. Have I got anything interesting to say about this? I'm not sure I have, really. I mean, the key thing is beforehand, you need to study the materials, try questions. If you find there's something you don't understand, follow it up. So what I used to do is when I was studying, anything I didn't understand, I put a little stick-it note in. And then when I got to the tutorial, I bought my notes, went through the stick-it notes and asked tutor. A little bit of advice. What I used to do is open up at the stick-it note and go, oh, I can't remember what the question was. So I refined my plan and I used to write what the question was on the stick-it note and put it in. And then make sure you get those all followed up. And that was a key thing for helping me understand a little bit better. At the tutorial, follow up anything. I mean, we are paid to be helpful. We are paid to help you pass. So ask as many questions as you want. You know, at worst, the tutor goes, "Oh, I can't answer that right now, but chat to you at break or lunch." But you know, get your most out of it. After a tutorial, I would recommend that you try the assignment. There's two reasons for doing that. Reason number one is it's a way of testing whether you have understood it, and if not, email the tutor and go, actually, no, I'm still confused on this. And the second reason is it's also more efficient. Whereas if you wait a couple of weeks before you do the assignment, you've forgotten what you learned in the tutorial. So it will take longer to do the assignment. So another way of saving time, being a bit more efficient, is doing the assignment straight after tutorials. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of hints. So assignments, I've mentioned, straight after tutorials is the best time. You submit them by, so you scribble them, you either then take a photo or scan them or whatever, and then email them to us. And yeah, then we email them out to the markers, and then we email you back and say you can download it from this website. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. The key thing is the markers are paid for being helpful. If they just put ticks and crosses, you could do that yourself. That's not why we're paying the money. That's not what you're paying for. So if they just do that, then you need to tell us, because that's not acceptable. They should be giving you hints, advice, tips, anything to help you pass. A lot of them are actually exam markers as well. And so they can actually give you a bit of an inside thing. So if you do use that, please, please, please do give them feedback, because they are paid based on their feedback. And if there's an issue, let us know. You know, either we retrain them or we get it remarked, because we want to offer you a premium service. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. Revision, yeah, not much. So a couple of revision products we offer. I'll just go through them all very quickly. So mock exams are what we say they are. You can submit them to be marked as well. Asset's a posh name for Acted Solutions and Exam Technique. So you can download the profession's exam papers and their solutions from the website free of charge. But if you're looking at their solutions and going, you know what, I need a bit more help, that's what the asset is for. So we go through every step, lots of explanation, lots of tips and advice. And if you're struggling with a question at the end of it, we give you other questions that are similar that you can go up and follow. So as I said, you can get the past papers free of charge at the website, but if you want extra help, that's where you get it from. Flashcards were my life, because it's one of the most efficient ways of memorizing stuff, is to test yourself on it. So the biology of it is every time you recall information, it strengthens a neural connection in your brain, which makes that memory more easy to access next time. So testing yourself via flashcards is a great way to do it. You could do it yourself, but if you want to buy ours, great, we'll happily take your money. My test is kind of like flashcards, but a bit more numerical, but it's a computer-based package. So flashcards are great for, you can also get e-flashcards that you can just do on your phone wherever you are, but my test, you're actually interacting with computer. Revision notes are a kind of combination of things. They've kind of got questions like flashcard style in them on the core reading, but they've also got brief exam solutions to exam papers over the last 10 years, okay, all bunched together into topics. So, you know, some people like the asset because it's got loads of explanation. Some people like the revision notes because it's got loads of past papers and summary solutions. Find out which product works for you. I'll have some samples uploaded. I don't think I've got everything actually at the end of this tutorial, whatever, at the end of this webinar. So if you want to have a look at them and decide for yourself. And also a lot of the online classroom and things like that we've got demos of them on our YouTube website. Sound Revise is only available in the kind of bookwork subjects, but it's basically where we kind of chat to you over an MP3 file and say, but we do it kind of a question answer format. So, you know, what are the 3 key things for setting up a company, and then we have a solution. And you can get revision webinars or tutorials as well if you wish. Right, that was a very quick run through of all the kind of things available to you for revision. Any questions on that before I bring it to a land and just do the last few things? Sorry, I'm talking very quickly. No? Okay, let's move on to the last bit. So, pass rates. CT exams. Let's find out. What do you think the average pass rate is for all the CT exam subjects? So I based it since 2005. So we've got 12 years now of results. And one of those is pretty much right. Oh. Actually, not too bad. So this is what you've gone for. Sadly, the 71% isn't a thing. 59% is about spot on. Okay, so you've done good. 48%, well, that's more realistic for the later exams, but for the CT exams, that's not the case. Later exams, that is the case. Let me just show you. Here we are. So for the CT exams, there's a kind of pass rate. So on average, as you said, it's about 58%-ish. It's just dipped slightly below that. CA1, for those who've got exemptions, so we had a couple of people here who had exemptions for most CTs, you'll probably be taking that. As you see, it's a little bit lower. It's 40-something%. Okay, now you have to remember, everyone who's coming to the actuarial profession did really well at uni. They got a first or 2-1, or they would have done exceptionally at A-levels and come in with an apprenticeship. Okay, so the question is, why are they failing? Because it's not because they're not clever. You know, that's just clearly not the case. So, what are your suggestions? Why do 41% of students fail the CT exams even though they're intelligent people? Yeah, I think debauchery is a key thing. So they clearly didn't read the Actuary's code, which I'm sure has a pillar for debauchery. They're really hard. I mean, the exams, I don't think they're more hard than uni, I have to say. They tried to teach their dog. Yes, that takes such a long time that they find that they've run out of time. But yeah, not enough time is a big thing. So as people are saying, balance work and revision, what tends to happen is, as I said, people start a little bit late, go, oh yeah, I'll start a little bit later, start in November, and then don't finish their study. They then hit January, work really starts picking up, and they're like, oh my goodness, I can't fit it all in. And by that point, they're already, you know, entered for the exam, and it's all going horribly wrong. So the key, did I mention it before? Study plan. Anything else? Didn't watch the webinar. Yeah, it's all to the web. The money's in the post, okay? ActEd isn't good. Yeah, it's all our fault. Yeah, we just can't. We only teach you a minuscule of the 125 hours. So poor exam skills, actually, it does pick up. So I mark for subject CT6, and there's a lot of students that when they get stuck on one part of the question, give up and go on to another question. Yep, oh, good question down below. You can order absolutely anything you like before you're signed up from the profession. Yep, we operate independently from them from that point of view. So we just give you a different code. We don't need your profession's number. So get them in as soon as possible. Although revision materials, I don't think we release them till January. Some things come in December, but tutorials, assignments, all that kind of stuff, that's all available now. Okay, managing time you've mentioned. Yep, balancing work and that. More content than uni exams. Yep, so you've picked up a lot of things there. So let's just go through them. I don't know who this girl is, but she's clearly too young to be an actuary. So a couple of things. The bookwork is a peculiarly British thing. So I mark papers from all over the world. How do you start studying? No, you can start. Oh, right. I misunderstood your question. The materials are available now, but revision materials like flashcards and revision notes aren't available to January. So normal study materials are available now, but revision materials, by that I mean kind of the asset, the exam papers and revision notes, that's all later. Sorry, thank you for clarifying. So in the UK exams, I noticed that the UK students, they tend to not really learn the bookwork. They're really good at doing the maths and applying it to unusual questions, but bookwork, very weak on. But I've found the Indian students are exceptional on the bookwork, but not so good at applying it to unfamiliar questions. So very different, interesting. So I'll just mention that. Practicing enough exam questions, they do repeat. If you go far enough back, you'll find exam questions repeat, particularly things like CT1 and CT3. It just gets quite samey. So please do that. Misreading questions. So I marked 160 scripts last time, and in one of them it said calculate the value of the adjustment coefficient and comment on your answer. Half of those people didn't do the second part of it, the comment. They misread the question. Lack of working is a big one. If a question says show or determine or derive, particularly the determine, a lot of people miss. That means you need to show the full working to get all the marks. I am instructed as an examiner that if you don't show working, I can only give you 1 mark for the answer. Okay. And the profession makes that clear. If you've not downloaded the student handbook, they haven't got the 2017-2018 one yet on the website, but they have got the 2016-2017. If you go through that, there's a little section on what the exam words mean, which explain things like determine and stuff. Do look at that. That's really actually quite useful stuff. Okay. Poor time management. Oh, yes. So I took a stopwatch at my exam. You can tell I'm kind of this manic person, but and just went, right, 10 marks. I've got 3 hours for a 100-mark exam, so that's going to be 18 minutes, ching, and make sure you do it. Okay. So those are a couple of tips. And if you do fail, if you get the answer wrong but working is good, yes, totally. You totally get follow-through marks. So if if you make a mistake early on but everything else is good, you get follow-through. So often we set up a spreadsheet and then we enter in your thing and just double-check your answers, follow through. Or even if that's not right, but you've done some things correct, you do get marks for it. Okay, so yes, rest assured you do get marks. So obviously you'll need to resit the exam. As I mentioned, exam counselling is available in later subjects, but to be honest, you can pay £25 and go and see your exam paper. I think you have to go in manually at the moment. I don't know if it's done online yet. Yeah, they have to. So I think you pay £25 so you can go into Oxford and see your exam paper. So if you're really struggling with what went wrong, go in there. You can take stuff in, but you can't take copies of the thing out. So what you could do is go in with the solutions, just find out where the mistakes are. Okay, and we do offer, as I said, revision tutorials. AMP stands for Additional Mock Pack if you want to do some extra mock exams. Okay, right, just in case you weren't aware, here's some interesting figures. So you saw that the pass rate was about 58% or something. Students who attend tutorials, 72% of them pass first time. And if they did a mock exam and assignments, then 82%. But it's statistics, you never know. Is that because the studious students do those things, or is it because students do those things that they pass? I don't know, but those are the figures if you're interested in. Similarly, I did have one for CA1, it's a similar kind of thing going on there. All right, last little bit for today is studying is going to be hard. You're all by your own. Where can you get help from if you are in a bit of trouble? So let's have a look. Suggestions for where we could get help from. Get help from me? Yeah, you can ask me, but I'm not a specialist in everything. You can ask your dog, yeah, but unless you speak dog, it's not good. And typically, I don't think dogs work in base 10, so that's a bit of an issue. Yeah, that John Lee, he helps everyone. Yeah, your mummy, if she's an actuary and your grandma is an actuary, then yes, you can definitely ask them. If they're not, you may not be able to. Dipti, so yeah, Dipti, if you want to put your email address, we can all email you as well. Right, so a couple of things you picked up. Yeah, there are actually forums on our website. So hold on, let's just see what they've got. So colleagues, there are a couple of colleagues you got. So fellow students are quite useful, particularly if they're studying the same exam. If you haven't got anyone in your office studying it, when you go to a tutorial, you may find others that they may not because they're actuaries and don't want to share their details, but may want to, set up a WhatsApp group or something. I've only seen it happen in one tutorial in goodness knows how many years I've been teaching, 15 years of teaching here. Though, to be honest, I don't think WhatsApp was around 15 years ago. But you might find other people that you could share ideas with. Study mentor or study buddy or whatever they're called, they may be able to help you, but often they're a couple of years on and they've forgotten what the content of the exam is, in which case they might not be able to help you, which is why you go elsewhere. So, yep, you can email me, but I'm not a specialist in everything. But when you attend a tutorial, you will get the email address of that tutor. Feel free to email it, it's part of the service. So you could phone the office. There are some tutors in the office, but yeah, most actuaries just go, no, we'd rather write that. I'll chat about that in a second. Web, yes. So on the web, there is forums on our website. You're welcome to post questions there, or you may use the search functionality. It's pretty good. You may find that someone's actually asked that question before and it's been answered. So I would always recommend searching forums first before posting a query. So that's that. Online tuition, if you're talking live online, they tend to start a little bit late. If you're talking pre-recorded online, they're available now. And in fact, I think we do a special deal. So if you're attending a 3-day face-to-face course, then you get the pre-recorded online for a minor fee. I don't know what it is, £30 or something, £30 plus VAT or something. So if you're really worried and a bit worried about, getting help in the tutorial and you want to get help beforehand, pay the little top up after you book your tuition, or pay for the online classroom, and then when you get a tutorial, they'll refund the difference or whatever. So you could do that if that helps. Yep. I think that's most things. Yep. So a couple of things there. So you can use, there are some subject specific ones, but typically they're there for reporting errors, and we will help you out as much as possible. Other than that, that's kind of everything. So I've tried to go through the current exam system, the changes that are coming your way, and some suggestions of best combination to take now to deal with those changes. Also try to go through some study skills so you're more efficient, okay, and get your work-life balance right. Other than that, that's kind of it for now. So I'm going to stick around and I will answer any questions you've got. No, that's not. No, this is me. That's someone else. They look young and more spotty, and they've got more hair. But no, that's not a picture of me. But I will stick around. So if you've got any more questions, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, you're welcome to email me. So I'll stick my email in the box again. So you've got it. Oh, and some people ask me about download stuff. Let me just sort out the download things for you. So that's my email again. Hold on. Let's bring it up. Pods. Sharing. Is it that one? No, it's not that one. Sorry. There it is. Okay, so let me remove that one because that's last year and it's changed. Right, I'll just upload the slides. So if you want to download them straight away, but they will be downloadable again. There we are, from our website. So I think it's that one. Okay, and I put a couple of samples of materials there. So, you know what, I don't want you to buy stuff that you don't use. I'd rather you buy stuff that you're going to use and you go, yep, this works for me. So, oops, yep, it's all there. So I put a flashcard sample for CT3, an asset sample. You know what I haven't done? I haven't done a revision booklet sample. My apologies for that. If you drop me an email, if you want to see what the revision booklet's like, I'll find an old one and just, give you a little chunk from each part of it so you can see yourself. Okay. Right, other than that, that's the official kind of webinar over because we've had an hour. But as I said, if you've got any questions, I will stick around here as long as the people are here. Actually, that means you could force me to stay here all day by just leaving it open on your computer. No. Okay, I'll stick around for a bit. So if you've got any questions, ask away. Other than that, ask me by email and I may see you in tuition in some time in the future. All the very best with your studies. What did I say were recommendations? So I would recommend you do CT3 if you haven't got an exemption from that, and then you've got a kind of choice because you probably want to take CT1, in which case you really must take CT5 so that you get CM1 exemption. So CT1, CT3, CT5 is probably the best one, and then do some other bits around the edge. If you've got a couple of exemptions, then you may be able to do the CT4 and CT6 and get that exemption from CS2. But you don't want to be caught halfway is the major thing. Okay, if that helps. If you've got details of what exemptions you've got, then do that. Then I can answer a bit better. Did you say that R is only used in the stats modules? Yeah, so CS1 and CS2 will use R, CM1 and CM2 will use Excel. Okay, if you're worried about R, you've not met it before, as I said, there are some starter tutorials on our YouTube channel. It's called Actuarial Education, our YouTube channel. You'll find us. We'll come pretty much top of the list if you search for us. And we've got a whole bunch of tutorials there. So just introductory stuff. More will get produced in the future. Go for Jen. Is it possible to study CT1 and CT5 at the same time? It is possible, Jen. If I'm honest with you, CT5 builds on CT1, and so it is quite hard studying at the same time. However, a lot of students do it at the same time and do succeed. So it is a little bit tricky. Your choices aren't brilliant at the moment. I mean, the other option is, yeah. what you could do is do the CT1, CT3 and any of the others, and then take CT5 in September, but nothing else, so you're totally focused and should totally pass. You know, that would be another way of doing it. How much of CT4 is using CT5? Technically, they say CT5 uses CT4, but frankly, you can totally live without it. So I think the official thing is you do them kind of in CT order, but really you can totally do without CT4. Yeah, any more questions? Okay, so if you pass one but not the other, my understanding is, it may change, my understanding is that you'll have to essentially do some retake. So you'll have to take CM1, the entire exam. Okay, I mean, it may be different, but at the moment that's what I understand it to be. So that's not got everything from CT1 in it, so it won't be a complete repeat, but it will be some repeat. Okay, but obviously it'll be a bigger exam. So I mean, the bottom line is it's not the end of the world. A lot of students are getting very upset about this, but frankly, you studied CT1. If you failed it before, you'd have to retake it, but you would have taken another subject anyway, so you're kind of still doing the same thing. So it's not horrendous. What CTs do you need before CA1, CP1? I mean, really you need CT1, absolutely. A little stats background would help. Other ones are kind of, you know, they're useful, they're informative, but you could probably live without it. Yeah, and Ian's nodding. So I would say CT1, you do sometimes get some CT1 questions in there in the project chapter, but projects is going in CP1, so you won't need it there. But yeah, certainly CT1, a little bit of stats would help, but otherwise you could get away with it. All right, any more questions? Well, you're welcome. Right, well, if there's not any more questions, then I will start closing this down. So if we stop the recording now.